Hey everyone, and today we're going to look at the Physical Competency Assessment that we use at APA. So if you're not familiar with the PCA, as I call it, it's a bridge really between a musculoskeletal physio screening and the traditional sports performance fitness test. So with a physio screening, you typically are looking at isolated muscle and joint function in very controlled movements with the physio leading that assessment. With the sports performance fitness test, on the other hand, you're looking at very explosive, high force, high velocity movements. So the physical competency assessment kind of is the bridge between the two, and really what you're assessing is someone's competency to perform fundamental movement skills, things like squats, lunges, single leg squats, the press up, the push up, and the hop. So these are the things that we're interested in, and the great thing about it is it's not discriminatory to necessarily the most physically mature athletes. So whereas they might do the best in the fitness test, certainly it's not the case here. You're looking for the people who have the best movement quality. So it's something that I highly recommend you do with your athletes, and today I'm going to take you through some of the tests. Now, just to kind of talk you through the evaluation criteria, the couple of things you need to be aware of. First of all, the scoring system is from 1 to 7, where 7 would be ideal movement competency. And then the other thing that you need to be aware of is that we have some minimum criteria that you need to pass in order to get a score. If you don't meet a minimum criteria, you get an automatic 1. And then the other thing to bear in mind is that with each of these different movement patterns that I'm going to show you, there will be a number of movement compensations that you need to be looking for, and again, if you see them, then they're going to be deducted from your total score. Starting with 7 is the best, and then for each movement compensation that you see, you're going to deduct a maximum of 1 mark. So for example, if when you're doing a squat, you have a compensation at the feet, and you see, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this, but just see if you can. If you notice that when someone is squatting, that they're collapsing in and showing you this kind of pronation, that they're also turning their feet out, that would be 2 compensations at the foot, but you can only give a maximum of 1 mark. So that's how we do it. So we're going to leave it there. I'm going to now take you through the test. Okay, so we're going to look first of all at the overhead squat, and I would say this: if you've got limited time or you're working with larger groups, I would definitely suggest to you that you at minimum do this one, because you're going to be able to see quite a lot of information just from one test. So a couple of things that I would say about this test, and it's the same for all of the tests that we're going to go through subsequently, is generally speaking, a couple of things you want to make sure you do. You want to be tucking in your t-shirt so that you can get a good view of the pelvis. You want to be making sure that you take your shoes off. That's important as well. And with all of these predominantly lower body tests, there's a couple of things that you want to be looking for. So in general, it's good to get 3 views. You're going to get a side view, you're going to get a rear view, and you're going to get a front view. So with these kind of bilateral tests like a squat, generally speaking, I'm looking for about 3 views, okay, 1 at each side. And when you're doing your evaluation, generally speaking, we're going to score it based on your best performance that you can see, all right? So that's a couple of things you need to be aware of. So tuck your t-shirt in, shoes off, and you're looking to get 3 views. As far as the minimum criteria goes for this particular test, what I say to people is you're looking to get as low as you can under control. Generally speaking, when we're doing the overhead squat, for example, the minimum criteria is this: with your feet shoulder width apart and your arms above your head, you're going to squat down until your thighs break parallel with the ground. If you cannot get that depth and you finish about here, you would have not met the minimum criteria. The other aspect of the minimum criteria, as well as range, is control. So if you see someone who can get into that depth, but the way that they achieve it is in a very uncontrolled and unsynchronized fashion, then again they wouldn't have met the minimum criteria. So that would also be a score of 1. So let me give you a couple of example repetitions. I'll do my best, see what happens, and give it a go. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a bit of kind of an example of the kind of range that we're looking for, the amount of control we're looking for. Generally speaking, for this assessment and the other lower body assessments that we're going to do, you're generally going to get compensations at 4 places. The first place you're going to get the compensation is going to be at the feet. So you're going to see predominantly people who are collapsing in at the subtalar joint. You're going to see people that are going to turn their feet out. Not so commonly you're going to see them supinating or turning their feet in, but it does happen. You might also see people who are lifting their heels off the floor, and those would be the kind of the common compensations that you're going to see at the feet. As far as the knees are concerned, you're going to see people who will be collapsing their knees in, possibly knees out. You're going to see a shift forward. That's quite a common one. And then when we get up to the pelvis, you're going to see compensations where people may be laterally shifting. You're going to be seeing them rotating the pelvis. You're going to see them anteriorly tilting, possibly posteriorly tilting. And then at the top of the thoracic, you're going to see people who are maybe rounding their back, and you're going to see people who are also really arching their lower back as well. So these are some of the common compensations. So look out for these. Remember, you can only deduct a maximum of 1 per joint. Okay, so we're going to do the next assessment. This is called the lunge and return. It's been inspired by a couple of different movement patterns that I've seen in the past. Ray Cook, when he did the functional movement screen, he has something called an inline lunge, and he also has a hurdle step. And I kind of really wanted to amalgamate the two concepts of those two movements. And so putting a lunge together with a balanced challenge, if you like, this is kind of what I've come up with. So there's definitely a strength component, and obviously testing your ability to get into those positions. But there's also a significant balance component, which I wanted to test as well. So you'll see that in the test. All of the things that we spoke about with the overhead squat, about the minimum criteria of depth, or range I should say, and control, and all of the movement compensations that we're going to look for typically at the feet, the knees, the pelvis, and then the back, they all apply too. So exactly the same now, just a slightly different movement pattern. The only thing I would add is that because now this is a unilateral single leg exercise rather than bilateral, rather than getting the 3 views, you could get 6. You could go front, side and back on each leg, but for time purposes, and what I'm going to show you today, for time purposes I normally take 2 on each side. So I take 1 on the front and 1 on the side for both legs, so we go with 4, just to kind of save us a little bit of time. But if you have got the time and you want to get all 6, go for it. So let me see if I can do this. Okay, so not the best example, but what I had to do there was show you that I had to hold the position on my stance leg for 3 seconds, go into my lunge, hit the ground, and then immediately come back up and then stick that position for 3 seconds. You do that on both legs, try and get the front view and get the side view, and you should be fine. Okay, so this particular movement assessment is one of the most dynamic tests that we do. We're actually looking at specifically dynamic balance, and we're looking at someone's ability to hop and stick. So we're really looking at their ability to control their joints whilst they're decelerating their body. So it's called the hop and stop test. You're supposed to hop over a distance of approximately 50% of your standing height. That way that is fair for everyone. So if you've got someone who's like 6 foot and someone who's 5 foot, obviously they're not going to be hopping the same distance. So 50% of their standing height. I haven't measured it out today for this video, so apologies for that, but we'll do it an approximation so that you get the idea. Exactly the same things as we've spoken about with the overhead squat and the other lower body assessments. Minimum criteria of range and control and synchronization. The range though for this one, rather than it being thighs parallel or 90 degrees, it's going to be 90 degrees at the knee joint here when you land, okay? So I'm not looking for them to land in this position here. That's your typical landing position. I actually want to see if they can control it down at 90 degrees. And unlike a lot of other assessments that I've seen where people let them hold their hands out for balance, I'm really mean. I make them hold the stick, okay? So let's see if I can pull this one off. Now, I'm going to keep that one in on the video because actually that's an example of a 1. Because what I did is I landed and then I tried to kind of cheat my way into position and lower myself into 90 degrees. That's not what I want. So I'm going to have one more attempt, see if I can nail it, where I actually hop and then land and find that position at 90 degrees. So let's see if I can do that. Okay, I'm going to give you one more from the front. I think that was a little bit better than the first one. Okay, and then I guess the final thing I would say on this is it is a subjective test like all the other tests. What you regard as control and what I might regard as control are going to be different. In my opinion, I showed control in both of those. There was a little bit of deviation when I was landing, but for me, I'm looking for evidence of significant compensation. So for me, a loss of balance or control would be a real kind of movement in that kind of fashion. So if you see a little bit like that for me, I'm okay with that. So again, it is a subjective test. You are going to have to make a decision on for yourself what you think a 90-degree landing looks like and what you think a controlled torso position and leg position looks like. But again, as long as you're consistent with it, then it will be valid and you will be able to use it with your athletes. Okay, so we're going to look at the single leg squat now. This is one of the most demanding unilateral exercises that we've got in our assessment. The evaluation scoring system is exactly the same for the overhead squat and the lunge, in that we're looking to get a minimum criteria of depth, which in this case will be thighs parallel. We're looking to get control and synchronization. And this, in my experience, is the test where people's control is most challenged. So you can get a lot of people who will get the depth, but in order to get that depth, they'll be very asynchronous or showing a lack of control. So you've got to make sure that you look for both. So we're going to give it a go now. I'm going to walk up to there. Again, same thing as before. Make sure you've got your t-shirt tucked in, shoes off. We're using today some platforms we've got steps. It's not necessarily the best option. A better option would be some kind of sturdy box, but this will do the job for today. Again, as with the lunge and the hop, try and get at least 2. Use one from the front, one from the side. If you have got time and you want to take a third, you can by all means take a view from the rear as well. But today I'll show you one from each side. And the most important thing is that I want them to keep their hands at chest level. Okay? One thing I will just say, and hopefully you can hear this on the camera, is this stabilizing leg is not allowed to make contact with the box. It cannot be used as a supporting stabilizer. It has to be free. Put it in front,
side, I don't care. And one on the side. So we're going to look at the press up or the push up, whatever you want to call it. It's the first of our two body assessments, and the same principles apply to this assessment, the upper body assessment, as does the lower body assessment. You're looking for some minimum criteria. In this case, we're looking for range, but we're looking for the chest to touch the floor, and we're looking for control as well, so that the descent and the ascent is in a nice smooth control direction. Okay? So those are the main things we're looking at. As far as the compensation points that you're going to be observing, it's going to look slightly different. So rather than looking at the feet and the knees as we did in the lower body assessments, we're going to start our assessment looking at the pelvis. We're going to go up to the back, and then we're going to be looking at the shoulder area and the hand position. So there's going to be a couple of different compensations that you might see there, but generally speaking, if you can imagine that this is your head, your shoulders and your hips, you're looking for a nice straight line, and it's looking to be going down and up in a control fashion. So let me see if I can show you a couple of press ups. As far as the videoing goes, generally speaking, I'm looking for a minimum of 2. So one view where I'm facing the camera, and one view where I'm side on. Okay? So let me show you those now. Now, just 2 things to say about this. Make sure that your arms are shoulder width apart, not too wide, not too close, about shoulder width apart. And your feet, the instruction I give is that they need to be together, but not touching. So I don't want them to be super glued together like this. They need to be together, but not touching. Hands are shoulder width apart, and then you should be fine. Okay, so the last assessment we're going to do is the line pull-up. I've put my shoes back on, so that's one thing that you probably want to know straight away. I think it's a good idea to have the shoes on so you can get a little bit of friction on the floor. And again, as before, make sure you tuck your t-shirt in. And the most important thing is that you have your hands slightly wide and shoulder apart, and you're raising your chest to the bar. Some assessments people might want you to have it more like the chin, but in general, I'm looking for the chest. Okay?
Hey everyone, it's Daz here again. I'm just over here at Sutton and I've got a quick minute to just really talk about the physical competency assessment. You've now seen me demonstrate all of the different exercises. You've seen me talk about how we are using a 1 to 7 scoring system, and you've heard me mention about the movement compensations that might take place commonly at those different joints, particularly the ankle, the knee, the pelvis, and then the back when we're talking about the lower extremity exercises, and then when we talked about push-up and pull-up, we talked about the pelvis, the back, the shoulders, and then the hand positioning at the wrist. So there's just really a couple of things that I forgot to say that I felt I needed to say in this particular video. The first thing is that I want this to be an assessment where the athlete knows exactly what it is that I want them to do. I have heard people in the past introduce these kind of movement assessments where they really don't want to say too much. They just want to observe what the athlete does in their own natural environment and doing things naturally. But for me, I don't want to waste time here. I want to get to the root issues quickly. I want to know, is someone able to do it or are they not? And if the reason that they can't do it is because they don't understand what it is that I'm actually asking them to do, well, I want to remove those barriers immediately. I want to know that the only reason why that person is not capable of performing that movement is because of some kind of physical dysfunction or restriction. I don't want to just keep my mouth closed, get them to do an overhead squat in the fashion that they think is appropriate, and then be wondering whether those compensations are actually compensations, or they just didn't know that they needed to keep their feet facing forward, that they needed to keep their arms above their head, that they needed to get down to an appropriate depth, and they needed to do it in a control pattern. I want this to be almost like an open book exam where you're giving them the answers to the test. You just want to know whether they can actually do them. So I think it's really important. I wanted to say that first of all, that it's something that I feel very confident that you'll get better information if you actually eliminate some of those potential barriers. And the simplest thing to do is make sure that they have a really thorough warm-up, and then let them practice the movements. What you video is going to be their best performance, so don't worry that they're going to get better through some kind of learning effect. You want that. You want to eliminate the learning effect, and you want to be left with pure physical capacities. Okay? The other thing that I wanted to speak to really was just about in terms of how often we do this, and also what you might need to do with this information. So the first thing, the easy one, how often? Well, we probably do this about 3 times a year. If we're working with individual athletes, you might do it a little bit more. If you're particularly trying to improve a specific movement pattern, you might then retest it in a 6 or 8 week period to see if it's got better. But if we're doing it with a larger group of individuals in a squad environment, we'll probably do this 3 times a year, something like September, January, and then maybe June. So you're getting a little bit of a snapshot of where they are at different moments in time. And I guess the last thing I was going to say is, from your actual evaluation, you're going to get some information about that person's movement capabilities, and it can sometimes be quite overwhelming to know what to do with that information. Generally speaking, if you're a strength and conditioning coach and you don't have a functional anatomy background, or you're not working with a physio, the most important thing that I would say to you is to see if you can unpack some of those movements a little bit further yourself by enabling the athlete to perhaps improve their range of motion at specific joints that you think might be restricted, perhaps improving the muscle length, muscles that you think might be tight, and by all means experiment and see if you get an improvement in the outcome. But if you get to a point where you're really a bit overwhelmed and you're not quite sure where to start, then you can always go and seek further advice, particularly if the athlete is experiencing any discomfort in any of those movement patterns. So it's always worthwhile getting a second opinion from a physio, but as I said, don't panic, don't try and over-analyze and over-complicate this. Just look at the movement pattern, see if you can identify some restrictions at some of the joints that perhaps could be involved in that dysfunction, and then retest it, and if it gets it better, great. And I would say in general, just using these evaluations as training tools, actually just practicing the movements, is going to make them better. So it's as easy as that sometimes. So don't overcomplicate it. Have fun with this, and remember that these kind of assessments are really a bridge between the pure physio-type musculoskeletal evaluations that you would do, and then obviously the sports performance athletic test. So I think it's a really good complement, and I hope that you're going to enjoy incorporating these, if you're not already, into your athlete assessments. Thanks very much.